love to secret shop every partner. But no, we end up doing a sampling. Companies like Microsoft do a certain number every year, or Motorola Solutions do a certain number every year. Others, typically they're doing in a country 30 at a time, or 50 at a time, that type of thing. And of course, then we get to do a maturity map where in a roll-up report, you can then say, these are the partners with high potential, so you should invest there. Because with just a little bit of help on their sales process or on their messaging or on fixing the PBX so they answer the phone, they're going to get more business.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was Leahanne Hobson. Leahanne is the founder and CEO of Alinea Partners, a consulting firm that helps large IT companies assess and transform the buying experiences of their customers. And in our conversation, we talk about the buying experience from the perspective of the customer. Leahanne shares research from her team that found that while 80% of CEOs believe they deliver superior buying experiences, only 8% of their customers agree. So we talk about why there's such a gap in the perception of the buyers versus the selling organization. We dig into why sales leaders seem to be so out of touch with the reality of how their buyers experience their selling. Then we dive into how Alinea surfaces its buying journey insights for its clients and talk about some of the 160 different elements they assess along the buying journey. So we get into all of this and much, much more. But before we get to Leahanne, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could leave us a review and give us your feedback about how we're doing. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Leahanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, well, I think you're a first. I think you may be our first guest from Vienna on the show.
Oh, wow, what a novelty. Have you ever been there? Have you come here?
I haven't been to Vienna. I think as I told you last time we talked, I've taken one step over the border into Austria on a bike trip, where I was, at the top of a pass between Italy and Austria, and we got there was snow, so we didn't get any further, but we walked a little bit.
Fantastic. So you have a bit of a footprint here, so you have to come back.
Literally a footprint. Yes, I definitely want to come back. So, I appreciate you joining us. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about Alinea Partners and what you do, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's see. I started the company in 2005, so I basically do everything. Chief cook and bottle washer.
Yes. Yeah,
we are a high-tech focused sales enablement and channel development agency.
Okay.
And we do a number of different things, but the one program we're best known for is we are the only company who does B2B secret shopping.
Interesting.
So we buy software, hardware, and services from IT vendors and their reselling channels.
Got it. I like it. So, I think part of the reason I first heard about you, I forgot how we got put in contact, but was just this as like, for me, it's like this missing element of so much in sales is like you talk to sales leaders and it's, what are your training plans this year? Well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z and so on. I said, so where'd you, come up with the data to do that? Well, we looked at our CRM system and our sales results. I said, great. Did you ever talk to your buyers? What they need from your sellers to be able to get their jobs done?
Yeah,
it's just this vacant stare, like, what? Talk to our buyers? What are you talking about?
You get that, or you get, I do NPS, or I do customer surveys.
Right.
And what our belief is that the buying experience is something that happens from the outside in. And a lot of high-tech companies are so busy with day-to-day selling and trying to stay on the trends and trying to figure out what the next move is. They're planning, they're working, they're developing service level agreements, they're developing quality level agreements that they want to have with their customers. A lot of them are doing NPS, or they're doing customer journey mapping. All good stuff.
Yeah.
But what we then say is we believe this is the desired state of the quality that you would like to offer your customers. And by the way, your prospects as well, even though LinkedIn doesn't talk about prospects, we only talk about customers, which is another pet peeve of mine.
Right. I talk about prospects almost exclusively. Yeah,
Exactly.
I call them buyers, but yeah.
Exactly. So that's the desired state, and that's the inside out view. What we do is we offer the outside in view, or the status quo. So you then get a picture through we have a scientific methodology that we use consistently, and you get this view of this is the entire journey, and in that journey, this is where you're doing really well. And because we've shopped over 650 different companies globally, we can say you're outperforming the competition with this behavior, or with this on your website, or with this in your proposal. And you're at the market level on these issues, and your experience is lacking in these areas. And this is where you're losing business. You're losing revenue.
Right. Well, and you have an interesting statement in one of your blog posts. You said, 80% of CEOs believe they deliver superior customer experiences, while only 8% of the customers agree. So customer experiences there, is that the full gamut, both pre-sale, post-sale, or is that just pre-sale?
From what we look at?
Yeah.
No, we do the whole thing. That's why we're the only ones that do it to this extent. You get a lot of companies that go out and look at websites, but what we do is really look at the buying process. So I'll take you through a journey.
Sure, that'd be great.
Linearly, instead of how it actually happens, because we know we don't buy this way. But the first step is we create a persona with a senior person within the company, usually the CEO or the sales director or a business unit manager. Or quite often we do this with a channel director, so somebody who has a reselling channel, and they put this into their program. So this is an ideal prospect that you would want to have. 20-person company doing marketing or finance or whatever it happens to be, with these types of problems. We get rather specific on it. We then train our buyers, and we do all of this in local language. So we have a group of different buyers that can do this. And the first thing they set out to do is see if, without knowing the name of the company, because we're not a customer or a prospect, can we find you? Okay. So this is going to be in your full digital footprint. Can we find you using Google? Everyone does that. Right. Are you on page 1, 2, or 3?
Right.
Can we find you in social? And in social, are you selling in social, or are you just doing social media and just posting things? Do you have a consistent presence? Do you have the best presence forward for your company in what you have in social?
And so, just pausing for a second. So when you're doing that evaluation of social profile of a selling organization, how are you looking at that? Do you have the names of key individuals? You're looking for sales leaders, looking for actual sellers themselves in terms of consistency of posting, type of content, and so on? Yes,
we do a subset of the organization. Obviously, not everyone, but mostly focusing on the top sales team members.
Okay.
Although we do block that out when we report, because we do not name and shame in our reports. It's all learning.
All right. No judgment.
No, just information.
Right.
Then we move to the website, and we're looking at whether or not what is on the website is it bringing us into the sales process? Is it part of the sales team, or is it just brochureware? Are the messages relevant for the type of prospect that you told me you want to have more of? So, for example, we get onto websites, and the first thing you see is 2 big blocks that say SMB and enterprise.
Right.
I'm like, what am I doing with this?
Right.
Things like that. And so we also check for how the website functions, because Many other companies do that, so we do that along the way. We then look at the offer construct. And this is really important because a lot of companies in high tech sell products like SKUs. They just take it from their IT vendor and they slap it on their website and they train their sales team and they sell it.
Right.
And so it's not being put into any context for a business person.
Right.
No business outcome. And very few are really looking at how do I bundle and how do I bring in my own services so I have my own IP and I have an upsell path so I'm different than the competition.
Okay.
We then go into the category that we call sales engagement. So I found you, you're relevant. Now I want to put you on my short list and have a conversation with you. So we go to all of the different communications possibilities. And in my experience, that's going to be email,
Right.
web forms, whether they function or not.
Right.
In Latin America, they still use fax. We don't check fax, but they do still use it.
Okay. All right.
Or at least it's on a lot of websites. Chat,
Right.
how that's functioning. And then sales engagement. So we actually get on the phone with the sales team and or sales reps.
Right.
And this is either going to be a single call, if it's something like we're buying a mobile phone or a mobile phone subscription. A lot of the telcos have worked with us.
So very transactional.
Yes, or Microsoft 365,
Right.
SAP. Or if it's something that's more complex, such as printers with workflow software or Azure or other more complex solutions, we usually end up talking first to pre-sales and then we end up getting into the technical architecture team. And we have people that can have those conversations. We go through that process and we either purchase in their marketplace if they happen to have one.
Right.
Or we go to proposal and request a proposal. Now, 2/3 of the time of that 650 plus opportunities, 2/3 of the time when we expect to get a proposal, we don't.
What? 2/3 of the times you actually don't get the proposal?
Yeah, so look at an average deal size of 10K just to be nice.
All right.
And think about how much money is being left at, going to the competition.
So what are you finding out? The reason why? Are they disqualifying you? They decide, hey, you're not a prospect, or
that's happened twice.
Oh, that's okay. So the answer is no. They haven't disqualified you.
And it's always in the UK. And they always say that after they come back and we tell them that they didn't do something right. Sorry. But yes, twice we've been told that. But that's usually because the people that we do the persona with do that work well. They're really prospects that they want to have. But it can be any number of things. Yes, it can be the sales rep. And you in your book, you go into a lot of detail around that and can talk quite extensively to the issues there. But it can also quite often be a process issue. Many of these companies are not using project management software, or they're not using a proposal tool, or they have people who don't know what they need to put in the proposal to get it out the door. And so they delay the decision, human behavior.
Right.
Or somebody goes on vacation and forgets to tell someone and they don't have a project management system, so it doesn't tee it up. Or they don't have a CRM system, which is even worse. Yeah,
I was going to say there's so many tools for sellers. I mean, but what's mind-boggling about that stat is, if I'm a sales rep and I've got an opportunity and they're asking for proposal and they are otherwise qualified, I'm just trying to think of reasons why I wouldn't get the proposal out the door, because it's like they say in basketball, you miss every shot you don't take. You're going to lose every deal you don't give a proposal on.
Absolutely. And in many of these companies, the process isn't easy enough to ensure that they get 100% hit rate.
Just giving proposals out. Holy cow. Okay. Wow. My eyes opened up today. Wow. Okay.
Then we either go into the marketplace, as I said, and purchase and look at the purchasing process, and then the onboarding process, which onboarding processes are dismal in the SaaS world. You work with some companies, let me call it telcos now. You get 3 or 4 different onboarding emails because they've got a marketplace, plus they have the core company, and both are communicating with you. As an example.
They don't they don't make sure they're not duplicating it. Yeah,
exactly. Or we get the proposal, and then we evaluate what's in the proposal. So that whole conversation we just had about what the offer looks like and whether it's bundling and upsell, we look at whether they've maximized the white spaces and the upsell opportunity that they could have, and whether there are some really core components in the proposal to make it readable, easily readable, and understandable. What are the terms and conditions, and how do I buy?
Right.
We evaluated a number of proposals a couple weeks ago, and we didn't understand them. And we have technical background, but the decision was to understand this. We would need Google help, to search different things, and we would have to call on various people within the organization with different skill sets in order to understand the proposal. So what that does...
Taking deep, heavy breaths here when I hear this, because it's like...
There are lots of good things that happen as well. But what that does is it either ensures that the sale doesn't happen because they just... put the proposal somewhere else until I have time to focus on it.
Well, they stick with the status quo.
And they stick with the status quo. Yeah.
And I've seen studies in the last couple of years, different studies saying that, I'm interested in what you're seeing is that anywhere from these 2 different studies, one was 50, one was 80% of opportunities in the pipeline, qualified opportunities in the pipeline, end up in no decision. Yes.
And I think it's because we're still selling too technically from what we've seen in these proposals. If you're selling to an IT department, that's one thing. But a lot of companies are really trying to break out and also sell to non-IT departments and to the CEO. People always say, I'm selling C-level. Well, then you have to speak C-level.
Yeah, well, there's multiple stakeholders in every decision, and they all have different backgrounds. So, yes, you have to be able to speak to all of them.
Exactly. And I think that there's still a gap there. And it really comes through in proposals, especially if a company is used to selling to a set client base. And now they're really trying to scale with SaaS. So they're going after the SMB market. The proposal has to be adjusted to be appropriate for that market.
Yeah, oftentimes you see the trajectory in SaaS. They start SMB, then go mid-market, then go enterprise. Yeah, and it's a big transition.
Yeah. So then we also look at customer service and see what kind of assets they have and what kind of knowledge base, and if they're using the latest tips and tricks and types of community-based learning that we're seeing in some of the better practices. And then we're done. We put together a report, 60 pages or so, and we deliver it and basically say, this is where you have hidden value proposition that you're not highlighting. You need to shine a light on it. This part of your experience is really, really good, and you should double down on it and do more of it because you're going to close business faster or more profitably. And then these are the areas that you might want to consider changing because it's not fitting, or it's certainly you're causing you to lose business.
So when your clients come to you, what are they saying to you is the challenge, right? What's triggered their interest in saying, yeah, here's this missing piece of data, this whole, let's look at it from the buyer perspective. What's motivating them to suddenly say, yeah, we need to be really evaluating this? What's happened in their business typically?
There are a number of things. Either, I would say early adopter behavior is they're obsessed about customer experience and they get it.
Okay.
So they just want to be top of their game continuously.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that do repeat performances,
Right.
every 6 months or once a year at least, like going to the dentist to have your teeth cleaned.
Yep. Check up.
Then you have new CEOs, sales directors, business unit directors, or really smart channel directors who come into a new position at a company,
Right.
and they want a 90-day plan. So they want to know, what are the areas that are where I'm leaking revenue? What should I fix first?
Okay.
So that they can then work through that plan, fix it, and then say, look, this is what we've just accomplished in the last 100 days.
Right.
And, here are the results. We did a revenue and a profitability timestamp, and now, we're seeing we've got an uplift. We also have a number of companies that say, we get that we need to be selling differently. We also, want to go after non-IT, in addition to IT.
Right. Right.
And so we need to do a status quo check of what we need to work on to improve. And then we get those who are in market for a certain amount of time with an offer, and they're not making their targets.
Right.
So either the CEO or sales rep or sales VP themselves wants to know why, and they've explored everything internally, or they're getting pressure from their IT vendor that they're not making their targets. And so they want to understand, is it the offer itself, or is it something within the process of how we're going to market? And then, of course, merger and acquisition. If you want to know, between 2 or 3 companies,
Yeah.
where do I have best practice, and what should I not change, and do mentoring around, and and what can I get rid of, which always happens.
Right. So when you work with companies that have work extensively through sales channels, indirect sales channels, do you secret shop each channel partner, or you just do a sampling?
I would love to secret shop every partner, but no, we end up doing a sampling.
Okay.
Companies like Microsoft do a certain number every year, or
Right.
Motorola Solutions do a certain number every year, and others. Typically they're doing in a country, 30 at a time, or 50 at a time, that type of thing. And of course, then we get to do a maturity map,
Right.
where in a roll-up report you can then say, these are the partners with high potential, so you should invest there. Because with just a little bit of help on their sales process, or on their messaging, or on fixing the PBX so they answer the phone,
Yeah.
they're going to get more business.
Well,
And
that triggers the question, because so along the lines something I was asking before, but I mean, you talk about, okay, 2/3 of cases, actually don't end up getting a proposal. Yeah, there's data, some of it's kind of old and hasn't really been updated, but that, a lion's share of inbound leads, for instance, never get followed up. And I was just wondering, sort of what you're seeing in that regard at the top of the funnel in terms of follow-up and leaks, as you're talking about. Has that gotten any better in the work that you've done, that you've seen?
yes, it has gotten better. We're seeing real omnipresent experiences that are happening by the volume players in the market.
Okay.
The GoDaddies of the world. Where it doesn't work is when the organization is very siloed behind the curtain, and there's manual processes taking place instead of automation put into place.
Right.
So you get an email or a web form that is completed that goes in, and then the bounce back that says you're going to get an answer in 48 hours, which, by the way, everyone, that's too long.
Yeah. Yeah. It was too long 20 years ago. It's even worse today. Yes.
Exactly. And then you never get anything.
Well, the thing it's interesting.
But you find out you're on their email list. So you get their
Of
newsletters.
course. You get those emails. Yes. Yeah. You don't get a response to your request. Yeah. Yeah.
But, the ones that are doing it really well, we're call into GoDaddy and they're onboarding you themselves. You don't have to type in anything. They're doing the work for you. That is smooth. And there are other companies out there that are phenomenal at, asking you those questions you don't think to ask when you call in.
Right.
And, they have you wanting to call them for all kinds of advice. That's trusted advisor.
That's trusted advisor, right. And that's the point that you're trying to get to. So I was wondering, too, whether what you've seen, I don't know how much work you've done with SaaS companies, but certainly in the subscription economy, we've seen in the B2B subscription economy, we've seen companies, specialize their sales roles. So there's the sales development reps, business development reps, sort of the entry-level sellers that do a lot of the first interactions with either inbound or with proactive outbound. And, there's some people think it works great, but, the buying experience isn't necessarily great because, especially if it's an inbound, you might be a relatively sophisticated buyer. You're talking to someone who's, the least experienced person on the other team. I was just wondering, and then you're handed off to someone else. I'm just wondering what you've seen in your surveys about the buyer's experience with that.
We typically go in starting off with knowing nothing, and really needing to be educated. That's, typically the way that our buying experiences start. It's only when we realize that the seller is not able to lead the journey, lead the sales process, that we start to throw in clues. Well, I read this and is that relevant, or should I be thinking about that? These types of discussions. It's a mix. Companies that are obsessed about volume and are top of their game tend to be very good at that. They spend a lot of time and they tend to get the right questions, but they're more often than not just selling transactionally. So that's easier to do, quote unquote easy.
Right.
You get some, underneath that, there are the legacy companies in the SaaS world or have moved to SaaS that are trying to move from a key account type of approach into a scalable model for volume. And that's where you see the hiccups because it doesn't align with somebody who has probably self-served on the website, knows pretty much what they want, and they just want to ask a few additional questions and be sure that the person is, the company that they're talking to, they can resonate with, and then they're ready to go. So that's where it tends to be sticky, is when a company is trying to make that change. Yeah,
it was interesting. There's a post somebody posted on LinkedIn a couple of days ago about his own experience. He's CEO of a smaller company, but sort of a well-followed marketing expert, and was trying to buy software for his company. And just goes through the experience. He called 7 vendors, and just in all cases, he started with their lowest level person, who are chartered oftentimes just to ask some simple qualification questions, which really don't qualify them, and then try to arrange a demo for the account executive. And it was just sort of a interesting story, because it really did point out sort of the shortcomings, and oftentimes where you've got people that sort of know what they want and are somewhat educated because they're able to, running up against processes that seem to be very inflexible, and people perhaps not prepared to understand their perhaps not the right fit for them in terms of, the level person talking to them, and pass them more quickly on to someone else?
Well, from the company's perspective, not the buyer, but the companies that he or she was trying to buy from, I just on their behalf, I mean, the reason that they put that structure in place is because they don't want to have their more senior sales reps spend time with opportunities that don't need more than just a demo. But you're right, it's annoying if you call in and you're at a different level. So basically what they're doing is assuming that everyone who calls in is at the same buying level and knowledge level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which takes it to the lowest common denominator. Yep. And makes that an annoying experience for somebody who has more knowledge or wants a faster answer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's reflected, I believe, in the prospect's overall assessment of their buying journey and of the vendor and the choice of vendor they make ultimately.
And that's the reason that we set that persona carefully. I always say to people, don't make it something that is either too big so that you're going to get everybody so excited they're all going to jump on it and act out of the process.
Right.
And don't make it so abnormal that they don't know what to do with it. Or unless you're really trying to prove the point that you want to go after this type of business and you're not set up to do that. So you want to identify all the things you need to fix. Mm-hmm. But that's not usually the case. People aren't usually that brave.
No. So in addition to like the secret shopping, do you also use surveys of buyers and just sort of quantitative analysis of their experience as a buyer with a particular sales organization?
We do a lot of different things in the sales enablement, sales readiness department, so to speak, offer management. So the research that we gather from secret shopping allows us to identify where there are gaps in the market. Mm-hmm. And so we have another series of programs that we do run, which can take you from analysis of a customer set and identification of opportunities, white spaces, to portfolio assessment. So we took the assessment idea and we created a portfolio assessment where we look at your capabilities as a company and your current products or services. And then we make, push a button and have our consultants look at it and make specific recommendations for what you could add to your portfolio, how you could package better. You have the capability to sell, I'm making this up right now, but security, and you're not. Right. Or any number of other things. And we then either hand that back to them with our recommendations and they go and do it, or we can then get involved in creation of an offer if needed. If they don't know how to put together the core messaging for non-IT, the use cases, and the sales motions that should go into place for that. And then we also get involved in sales briefing documentation and customer-facing decks, and then training the sales team on those offers.
Got it. So just for people listening, sort of average size company you work with in terms of maybe a number of salespeople, or how do you, structure the ones that you focus on?
Yeah, so we work quite a bit with Microsoft and with their full channel. So we touch about 100 different Microsoft partners every year. And they're either 100% Microsoft houses, or they're also selling Citrix or, SAP or, other VMware. And so we get involved with that. We also work with Xerox and Motorola Solutions, O2, their channel. So we deal with companies that are more mid-sized and for the offer development.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And for the offer development work, we do work with smaller companies. But for sales, for secret shopping, you usually need at least 10 people in your sales department, because we don't want to set a persona, go away and shop, and then the person who set the persona with us answers the phone. That's a little
For
silly.
instance, yes, yeah. All right. Well, good. Well, Leahanne, thank you so much for joining me. This has been very, very interesting.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think too rarely do companies, when they're analyzing sales challenges, look at it really from the buyer's perspective. I mean, they do nominally in terms of, let's create personas, so on and so forth. But actually getting in and seeing, okay, what's been the buyer's experience with our sales team? Yeah, it's a huge gap in knowledge most sales teams have, and it should be closed, because if you'll make decisions about how to do better in sales, why don't you start with your buyers, find out what their experience is.
Absolutely. And we know a number of companies that say, well, I call in, the CEO calls in and tests.
Yeah.
But it's important to have a tested methodology to do it, I think, in order to give the full feedback instead of just a sporadic moment. Yeah,
I had one client, and I think CEOs, just for the most part, are not in touch with the buying experience at all. And I had one client once was complaining about he had called into a company, and it's just so frustrated trying to deal with the automated voice attendant and try and navigate the logic tree of where to go. And I sitting there complaining to me, I pick up the phone and dial his number, right, for his company, and his was as bad as the thing he was complaining about.
I hope they gave him that music on hold that's actually an advertisement for the company.
Yeah, no, they hadn't done that. But yeah. So, all right. Well, Leahanne, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. As always, I'm so grateful for your support of the show. And I want to thank my guest, Leahanne Hobson, for sharing her insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So thank you for your help with that. And thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.